The sound of a child's muffled sob echoes through the stainless steel door, a whisper of desperation in the frigid darkness where no child should ever be. Martin Blackwood, CEO of Westlake Industries and pillar of the community, glances nervously at his watch as he turns the lock on the industrial freezer, his daughter Emma's tiny fists pounding weakly against the metal that will soon steal the warmth from her 7-year-old body. In the dim basement corridor, 12-year-old Theo, the janitor's son who comes to work with his father on weekends, freezes when he hears something between the mechanical hums. A sound so faint yet so unmistakable that his blood runs cold. Help. Please, anybody. Why would a father, with everything money could buy, lock his own flesh and blood in a freezer on the coldest night of the year? If you love stories about courage, justice, and the extraordinary bonds that form in the darkest moments, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our heartwarming tales of triumph against impossible odds. The Blackwoods were Millfield's royal family. Their Georgian mansion stood on Oak Ridge Hill, overlooking the town like a watchful patriarch. Every Christmas, they hosted a charity gala that made the local news. Every summer, they sponsored the town festival. And every day, Martin Blackwood's Tesla hummed quietly through the streets, a symbol of success that made heads turn. Another donation from the Blackwoods, announced the mayor 6 months ago, unveiling the new children's wing at Millfield General Hospital. Martin stood tall in his tailored suit, his arm around his wife Catherine, who smiled warmly at the crowd. 7-year-old Emma, in her pressed blue dress, clutched her mother's hand and waved shyly when prompted. But now Catherine was gone. A tragic accident, the newspaper had called it, fell down the stairs at their home. The town mourned for weeks. Flowers piled up outside the Blackwood gates. Casseroles arrived daily. Martin accepted condolences with dignified grief. Emma, always at his side, silent and wide-eyed. Theo's father, Manuel Vasquez, had worked as head janitor at Westlake Industries for 15 years. He often told Theo how Martin had changed after Catherine's death. He used to stop and ask about my family, Manuel said one evening as they mopped the executive floor. Now he doesn't even look at me. Theo had noticed other changes, too. Emma used to sometimes come to the office with her father on weekends, coloring quietly in the corner of his office while Manuel and Theo cleaned. She'd been shy but friendly, offering Theo cookies from her lunchbox. Then she'd stopped coming altogether. When Theo asked his father about it, Manuel shook his head. Mr. Blackwood enrolled her in some fancy weekend program, ballet or something, but last month Theo had glimpsed Emma in her father's car as they pulled into the parking garage. She'd looked different, thinner, her eyes downcast. When she noticed Theo watching, she'd given him a small wave before her father hurried her inside. At school, rumors circulated about the Blackwoods. Jessica Kim, whose mother worked as a nurse, whispered during lunch that Catherine Blackwood had bruises when they brought her to the emergency room. My mom said they weren't from falling downstairs. The teachers quickly silenced such talk. The Blackwoods have done so much for this community, Mrs. Henderson had scolded. Show some respect for their privacy during this difficult time. But Theo had seen something in Emma's eyes that last time, something that haunted him. Fear. The same fear he now heard crystallized in that tiny voice coming from inside the freezer. As Theo pressed his ear against the cold metal door, he remembered something else. 3 weeks ago, he'd found a small pink hair clip under Martin Blackwood's desk. He'd recognized it immediately as Emma's. She wore them every day when she used to visit. He'd pocketed it, meaning to return it if he saw her again. It was still in his backpack, a small, glittery butterfly with one wing slightly bent. So Emma had been here recently, but not in her father's office where people could see her, somewhere else in the building, hidden. A violent shiver ran through Theo as the pieces started to connect. The whispers at school, Emma's frightened eyes, Martin Blackwood's increasingly erratic behavior that his father had mentioned, showing. Up at odd hours, barking orders, once throwing a coffee mug at the wall when a presentation wasn't ready. And now, a child's voice behind a freezer door. Emma's voice! Theo's heart hammered against his ribs as the muffled cries grew weaker. Whatever was happening in the Blackwood family, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Emma was in danger, and time was running out. Theo's hands trembled as he pulled at the freezer door. The handle wouldn't budge. A small electronic keypad glowed green beside it, locked with a code. He pressed his ear against the cold metal again. "Hello? Can you hear me?" he called, trying to keep his voice steady. A faint whimper answered. "Help! Cold! Emma, is that you?" "It's Theo. Mr. Vasquez's son." The voice grew slightly stronger. "Theo, please, get me out. I'm trying. I'm going to get my dad." Theo backed away from the door, then hesitated. "I'll be right back, Emma, I promise. Keep talking so I know you're okay." He sprinted down the corridor, sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. His father was 3 floors up, cleaning the executive bathrooms. Theo took the stairs 2 at a time, lungs burning. "Papa! Papa!" he shouted, bursting through the stairwell door. Manuel looked up from the sink he was scrubbing, alarm spreading across his face. "¿Qué pasa? What's wrong?" Mr. Blackwood locked Emma in the freezer downstairs. "We have to help her." Manuel's face drained of color. "Are you sure?" "Yes, I heard her. She's crying and says she's cold. We need to hurry." Manuel grabbed his phone from his pocket. "We should call the police." "There's no time. She sounds really weak." They raced downstairs, Manuel radioing the night security guard as they ran. "Ed, we need help in the cafeteria kitchen. Emergency!" The freezer door remained firmly shut when they arrived. Manuel tried the handle, then examined the keypad. "Emma," he called, "this is Mr. Vasquez. Can you hear me?" A faint sound came from inside. Manuel looked at Theo, his expression grim. "Her voice is weaker. We need to get her out. Now." Ed, the night security guard, huffed around the corner. "What's going on?" "Mr. Blackwood's daughter is locked in the freezer," Manuel explained quickly. "We need the code or a key." Ed's eyes widened. "Jesus, I don't have access to this. Only management does." Manuel looked around desperately, then grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall. "Stand back." He slammed the heavy cylinder against the keypad. Sparks flew, but the lock held. He tried again, harder. The plastic cracked, but the light remained green. "It's on a separate power system," Ed said. "Security measure," Theo thought. Quickly, "Can we take the door off the hinges?" "Industrial freezers don't work that way," Manuel said, examining the frame. "We need tools. Heavy ones," Ed spoke up. "There's a crowbar in the maintenance closet." "Get it," Manuel ordered, then turned to Theo. "Keep talking to her. Keep her awake." Theo pressed against the door. "Emma, we're getting you out." "Can you tell me how long you've been in there?" The answer was so faint he barely caught it. "Don't know. Daddy said 1 hour to learn." Theo's blood ran cold. "Learn what?" "What kind of lesson involved freezing your child?" Manuel placed a gentle hand on Theo's shoulder. "Son, we need to call 911. This is beyond us." Theo nodded, knowing his father was right. They could lose their jobs for this. Martin Blackwood could destroy them. But a child's life was at stake. Manuel dialed with shaking fingers. "Emergency? A little girl is locked in an industrial freezer at Westlake Industries. We can't get her out. Please hurry." Ed returned with the crowbar. Manuel wedged it into the door seam and pulled with all his strength. The metal groaned but didn't give. "Together," he told Ed and Theo. All 3 pulled. Sweat beaded on their foreheads despite the chill emanating from the freezer. The door seal cracked slightly. Hope surged through Theo. "Again!" Manuel commanded. They strained against the crowbar. Suddenly the handle mechanism snapped with a metallic ping. The door remained closed, but the lock was broken. Manuel and Ed heaved the heavy door open. A rush of Arctic air billowed out in a white cloud. In the corner of the freezer, huddled against boxes of frozen food, sat Emma Blackwood. Her lips were blue, her small body shaking uncontrollably. Her pink dress was crusted with ice crystals. Theo rushed forward without hesitation, pulling off his hoodie as he ran. He wrapped it around Emma's trembling shoulders, his heart breaking at how small she looked, how fragile. "We've got you," he whispered, lifting her gently. She weighed almost nothing in his arms. "You're safe now." Emma's eyes, glassy with cold, struggled to focus on his face. "He's coming back soon," she whispered through chattering teeth. "He'll be angry." "Don't worry about him," Theo said firmly, carrying her out of the freezer. "Help is on the way." As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Emma had stopped feeling her toes first. The cold crept up from the freezer floor, through her thin socks, into her feet. She'd tried to keep moving them at first, wiggling her toes inside her shiny black shoes like her ballet teacher had taught her, but eventually they'd gone numb, and no amount of wiggling brought back the feeling. "Count to 3,000 and I'll come back," Daddy had said, his voice tight with that scary anger that had become so familiar since Mommy died. "Think about what you've done." What she'd done was ask about Mommy again, asked why they never visited her grave, asked if they could put flowers there like they'd done for Grandpa last year. Daddy hated when she mentioned Mommy now. The numbers had jumbled in Emma's head after a while. She'd reached 800-something before the cold made it hard to think. Now she huddled against boxes of frozen food, trying to make herself small, trying to conserve the warmth her mother had once told her was, inside every living thing, a special fire that keeps us going. Emma's fire was dimming. She closed her eyes and imagined her mother sitting beside her, the way she used to when Emma had nightmares. Catherine Blackwood had been beautiful, not the cold, perfect beauty that Daddy always wanted in their family photos, but a warm, laughing beauty that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "I'm scared, Mommy," Emma whispered, her breath a tiny cloud. In the freezing air, in her mind her mother stroked her hair. "I know, sweetheart, but you're so brave. Braver than you know." The freezer hummed around her, mechanical and unfeeling. Emma remembered summers at their lake house before Mommy got difficult. That's what Daddy called it. They would swim in the warm water, and afterward, Mommy would wrap Emma in a fluffy towel and hold her close until she stopped shivering. No one held Emma anymore. "Remember our secret game?" her imaginary mother asked. "The one where we find beautiful things wherever we are?" Emma nodded weakly, ice crystals forming on her eyelashes. Their game. Find 3 beautiful things, no matter where you are or how you feel, even on the worst days. She forced her eyes open, looking around the freezer. One beautiful thing, the frost patterns on the metal shelves, looked like fairy drawings. 2, the light coming through the small window in the door made rainbows when it hit the ice. 3, Emma couldn't think of a third. Her mind was getting foggy. "Mommy," she whispered, "I think Daddy did something bad to you." She'd seen them fighting that night, heard the crash, peeked through the banister to see her mother lying so still at the bottom of the stairs, and Daddy just standing there, not calling for help, not running to her, just watching, his face like stone. Later, he'd found Emma in her room, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Your mother fell," he'd said, his voice strange and flat. "It was an accident. Do you understand? An accident." But it wasn't. And somehow, he knew that she knew. That's when the punishment started. Small at first. No dessert, early bedtime. Then harsher. Locked in her room for a weekend, no food for a day. The dark closet. And now, the freezer at Daddy's office. Emma's thoughts scattered like snowflakes as the cold penetrated deeper. The shivers that had racked her body began to subside, not because she was warming up, but because her body was giving up the fight. "Is this what dying feels like?" she asked her mother's ghost. "No, sweet girl," came the imagined reply. "Help is coming." Emma almost laughed. No one knew she was here. Daddy had made sure of that, bringing her in through the back entrance after everyone had gone home for the weekend. No one would find her until Monday, and by then, a sound cut through the freezer's drone. A voice calling her name, Emma thought. She was imagining it at first, another part of her conversation with Mommy. But it came again, more insistent. A boy's voice. "Emma, is that you?" With tremendous effort, she forced her frozen lips to move. Help. Cold. The voice belonged to Theo, the janitor's son. Emma remembered him. He'd shared his cookies with her once when she'd been hungry during one of Daddy's weekend work sessions. He'd shown her his comic books and made her laugh. "I'm trying. I'm going to get my dad. I'll be right back, Emma. I promise. Keep talking, so I know you're okay." Emma wanted to call out, to beg him not to leave her alone again, but she couldn't find the strength. Instead, she whispered to her mother, "Is Theo real, Mommy? Or am I making him up too?" The cold pressed in heavier now. Emma's eyelids drooped, so tired, so very tired. Maybe if she slept just for a minute, the cold wouldn't hurt so much. "Stay awake, Emma," her mother's voice urged in her mind. "Help is coming. Stay with me." But the darkness was soft and welcoming, promising relief from the cold and the fear. Emma felt herself sliding toward it, unable to resist its pull. The last thing she heard before consciousness slipped away was the distant wail of sirens, like a lullaby drawing her into dreams. Red and blue lights splashed across the polished marble of the Westlake Industries lobby. Officer Carmen Ramirez was first through the door, her hand hovering near her weapon as the night security guard led her team toward the service elevator. "How long has she been in there?" she demanded, striding purposefully across the floor. "We don't know," Ed replied, his voice shaking. "The janitor's boy found her. Could be minutes, could be hours." The elevator doors opened onto the basement level. Paramedics followed with a stretcher and emergency equipment, their faces grim with urgency. Officer Ramirez had seen a lot in her 15 years on the force, but the sight that greeted her in the kitchen area made her stomach clench. A small girl lay on the floor, wrapped in an oversized hoodie, her skin a frightening bluish white. A teenage boy cradled her head in his lap, talking to her softly, even though her eyes remained closed. A Hispanic man in a janitor's uniform was rubbing her tiny hands between his. "Step aside," the lead paramedic ordered. Kneeling beside the child, the janitor moved immediately, but the boy hesitated. "She's afraid," he said, his voice cracking. "I promised I wouldn't leave her." Officer Ramirez placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Let them help her. You can stay close." Reluctantly, the boy slid away, allowing the medical team access. They worked with practiced efficiency, checking vital signs, wrapping thermal blankets around the girl's body, starting an IV. "Core temperature 89.6, one paramedic announced. "Moderate hypothermia. Pulse is weak but steady," added another. "Officer," Ramirez turned to the janitor. "I need details, now." "My name is Manuel Vasquez. I'm the head janitor here," he explained, never taking his eyes off the small figure surrounded by medical personnel. "My son Theo and I were cleaning when he heard crying from the freezer. It was locked. We had to break it open. And the girl, you know her? Emma Blackwood. She's Martin Blackwood's daughter. He owns this company." Ramirez's eyebrows shot up. She knew the Blackwood name, like everyone in Millfield. "And where is Mr. Blackwood now?" "We don't know. He was here earlier. My son saw him leaving." Ramirez turned to Theo, who stood watching the paramedics work, tears streaming silently down his face. "You saw Mr. Blackwood? When?" "About an hour." "Ego," Theo answered, wiping his cheeks with his sleeve. He was walking fast, checking his watch. He looked nervous. "Did he see you?" Theo shook his head. "I was in the supply closet, but I saw him lock the freezer door before he left." Ramirez's expression hardened. She turned to her partner, Officer Diaz. "Put out an APB on Martin Blackwood and get a crime scene unit here." To Manuel, she said, "I'll need security footage." "Fifth floor security office," Manuel replied. I need to move her now," the lead paramedic interrupted. "She's stabilizing, but she needs hospital treatment immediately." They transferred Emma to the stretcher, the thermal blankets tucked snugly around her small frame. Her eyes fluttered open. Briefly, panic flashing across her face when she didn't recognize her surroundings. "Theo?" she called weakly. The boy stepped forward immediately. "I'm here, Emma." Officer Ramirez nodded to the paramedics, who allowed Theo to approach. He took Emma's hand carefully, mindful of the IV. "You're safe now," he told her, his voice steadier than before. "These people are going to take you to the hospital to get warm." Emma's grip tightened on his fingers. "Don't leave me," she whispered. Theo looked to Officer Ramirez, a silent plea in his eyes. "He can ride in the ambulance," Ramirez decided, then addressed Theo. "Your father will follow in my patrol car." As they wheeled Emma toward the elevator, She began to tremble violently, not just from cold, but from fear. "Daddy will be angry," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "He'll punish me worse next time." Ramirez and Diaz exchanged glances. Diaz's hand clenched into a fist at his side. "There won't be a next time, sweetheart," Ramirez assured her, a hard edge to her voice. "I promise you that." In the lobby, more officers had arrived along with a news van. Someone had tipped off the local station. Camera flashes illuminated the night as the paramedics rushed Emma through the glass doors toward the waiting ambulance. Theo climbed in beside her stretcher, still holding her hand. Just before the doors closed, he looked back at his father, who gave him a nod of encouragement. "Take care of her, mijo," Manuel called. As the ambulance pulled away, sirens wailing, Officer Ramirez stood in the gleaming lobby of Westlake Industries, staring up at the larger-than-life portrait of Martin Blackwood that dominated the wall. His confident smile and calculating eyes looked down on everyone who entered his domain. "Not for much longer," she muttered, turning away. "Your kingdom's about to fall." Millfield General Hospital hummed with quiet urgency. In the pediatric intensive care unit, machines beeped steadily beside Emma's bed, monitoring her slowly rising body temperature. Warming blankets surrounded her tiny frame, and heated saline flowed through the IV in her arm. Theo sat in a chair by the window, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. He hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma huddled in that freezer, her lips blue, her eyes vacant. His father dozed in the chair beside him, his work uniform rumpled, his head tipped at an uncomfortable angle. Manuel had refused to leave, even when his wife Rosa arrived with a change of clothes for both of them. "What will happen to her?" Theo had asked when his mother brought them coffee around midnight. Rosa had glanced at the small figure in the hospital bed, her eyes filling with tears. "The police will investigate. There are social workers involved now. Will she have to go back to him?" "No, mijo, not after this." Now, as morning light spilled across the room, Theo noticed Emma's eyelids fluttering. He moved closer to the bed, his heart racing. "Emma?" he whispered. Her eyes opened slowly, confusion clouding them until they focused on his face. Recognition dawned, and with it, fear. "It's okay," Theo said quickly. "You're in the hospital. You're safe." Emma's gaze darted around the room, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. Where's Daddy?" "The police are looking for him," Theo answered carefully. Emma's small fingers clutched at the blanket. "He'll be so angry." "He can't hurt you anymore," Theo promised, though uncertainty gnawed at him. People like Martin Blackwood had power, connections. Would that be enough to save him from consequences? A doctor entered, clipboard in hand, followed by a woman in a smart pantsuit. The movement woke Manuel, who straightened immediately. "I'm Dr. Mitchell," the doctor introduced herself, checking Emma's vitals. "And this is Miss Parker from Child Protective Services." Manuel stood and shook their hands. "Manuel Vasquez, this is my son, Theo. We're the ones who found her." The doctor nodded. "You saved her life. Another 30 minutes in that freezer." She left the sentence unfinished, turning her attention to Emma. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" Emma didn't answer, shrinking back against her pillows. "It's okay to talk to them," Theo encouraged. "They want to help you." Emma's eyes remained fixed on Theo, as if he were a lifeline in strange waters. "My throat hurts," she whispered. "That's from the cold air you were breathing," Dr. Mitchell explained gently. "We've got you on warm fluids and special blankets to bring your temperature back up." Ms. Parker stepped forward. "Emma, I'm here to make sure you're safe and taken care of. Can you tell me what happened yesterday?" Emma's breathing quickened, the heart monitor beside her bed beeping faster. "Perhaps we should wait," Manuel suggested, noticing her distress. Dr. Mitchell agreed. "Her physical condition is still fragile. The psychological trauma can be addressed when she's stronger." A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. Raised voices, hurried footsteps. Officer Ramirez appeared in the doorway, her expression stormy. "Mr. Vasquez, a word?" she requested. Manuel followed her into the corridor. Through the partially open door, Theo could hear their conversation. "We found him," Ramirez was saying, "at his lake house, packing a suitcase. Had a flight booked to the Cayman Islands? Did he confess? Manuel asked. Claims it was a misunderstanding. Says Emma was playing hide and seek and must have accidentally locked herself in. Manuel's voice hardened. That's a lie. The freezer locks from the outside and my son saw him. We know. We've got the security footage too. He's in custody, but his lawyer's already making noise about bail. Inside the room, Emma had gone very still, her eyes wide with terror. Theo realized she'd heard everything. He's coming back for me, she whispered. No, Theo said firmly, taking her hand. The police have him. He can't hurt you now. But doubt shadowed his words. Theo had seen enough TV to know how these things sometimes worked. Rich men with expensive lawyers often found ways to escape justice. Ms. Parker must have sensed it too. She sat on the edge of Emma's bed. Emma, I promise you won't be going back. To your father's house. We're going to find you a safe place to stay while everything gets sorted out. Where? Emma asked, her voice small. We have wonderful foster families who take care of children in situations like yours. Emma's grip on Theo's hand tightened painfully. I don't want to go with strangers, she said, panic rising in her voice. Before anyone could respond, Dr. Mitchell's pager beeped. She checked it with a frown. There are reporters in the lobby asking questions. Security's trying to keep them out, but someone leaked that Emma Blackwood was brought in last night. Outside the window, Theo could see a news van pulling into the parking lot. Another followed close behind. The story was breaking. The private nightmare of the Blackwood mansion was about to become very, very public. Martin Blackwood arrived at Millfield General Hospital in a storm of expensive cologne and righteous indignation. His Italian leather shoes clicked authoritatively across the lobby floor as hospital security struggled to hold back the press that had gathered outside. My daughter, he demanded at the reception desk, his voice carrying the practiced concern of a worried father. Emma Blackwood, I need to see her immediately. Behind him stood a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a briefcase that probably cost more than Manuel Vasquez made in a month. Lawrence Whitfield, the most expensive attorney in 3 counties. The receptionist looked up, recognition flashing in her eyes. Mr. Blackwood, I'll need to call... Now, Martin interrupted, the mask of concern slipping just enough to reveal the steel beneath. I understand there's been a terrible accident. Officer Ramirez stepped forward from where she'd been waiting by the elevator. Mr. Blackwood, I'm Officer Ramirez. There's been no accident. Martin turned, the perfect picture of a distraught parent. Officer, thank God. I've been frantic. I left Emma with the nanny while I went to our lake house for some documents. When I returned, the nanny said Emma had disappeared. I've been searching everywhere. Ramirez's expression didn't change. That's interesting, since we have security footage of you locking your daughter in an industrial freezer at your company headquarters yesterday evening. Martin's face remained composed, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. That's absurd. I would never... We also have an eyewitness who saw you leaving the premises after securing the freezer. The attorney stepped forward smoothly. My client has no comment at this time. We're here to see his daughter, whom he has legal custody of. Your client is currently under investigation for child endangerment and attempted murder, Ramirez countered. He's not going anywhere near that child. I want to see my daughter. Martin's voice rose, drawing the attention of everyone in the lobby. His perfect appearance began to crack, hair slightly disheveled, a wild look entering his eyes. Mr. Blackwood is here voluntarily, Whitfield interjected. He's not under arrest. He has every right to see his child. Ramirez's hand moved to her weapon. Actually, he is under arrest. Martin Blackwood, you have the right to remain silent. Upstairs, Emma sat frozen in her hospital bed, listening to Theo read from a comic book he'd found in the waiting room. She wasn't really following the story, but his voice was soothing, a steady anchor in the storm of uncertainty that surrounded her. The door opened, and Ms. Parker entered with Dr. Mitchell. Their faces were tight with tension. Your father is here, Ms. Parker said gently. Emma's heart stuttered in her chest. The monitors beside her bed betrayed her fear with rapid, insistent beeping. He can't see you, Dr. Mitchell added quickly. The police are with him. You're completely safe, but Emma knew better. Daddy always got what he wanted, always. He'll take me away again, she whispered. Theo put down the comic book, his young face hardening with determination. No, he won't. I won't let him. Manuel, who had been dozing in a chair by the window, stood up. I should go down there. Stay with Emma, Miss Parker suggested. Officer Ramirez is handling it. But the commotion was growing louder. They could hear raised voices from the floor below, then the unmistakable sound of someone running upstairs. The door burst open. Martin Blackwood stood there, breathing hard, his perfect suit rumpled, his eyes wild. Behind him, hospital security and police officers scrambled to catch up. "Emma," he said, his voice suddenly gentle, theatrical. "Sweetheart, what a terrible misunderstanding. Daddy's here now." Emma shrank back against her pillows, trembling violently. The sight of her father, the cold eyes behind his warm smile, sent waves of terror through her body. Manuel stepped between Martin and the bed. "You need to leave." Martin's face twisted with contempt. "Get out of my way, janitor. That's my daughter." "The daughter you locked in a freezer?" Theo spoke up, standing beside his father. "The daughter who almost died because of you?" For a moment, genuine surprise flickered across Martin's face. He hadn't expected to be challenged by a child. Then, his lawyer appeared behind him, whispering urgently in his ear. "Emma," Martin tried again, his voice honeyed with false emotion. "Tell them it was a game. Tell them you were playing hide and seek like we discussed." Emma looked at her father, the man who had once swung her high on his shoulders at the park, who had read her bedtime stories, who had transformed into someone unrecognizable after her mother died. She looked at Theo and Manuel, who had risked everything to save her. She looked at the doctor and the social worker, waiting with bated breath. In the heavy silence, she made her choice. "You locked me in there," she said, her voice small but clear. "You said it was punishment. You said you'd come back in an hour, but you lied." Tears filled her eyes. "Just like you lied about Mommy." The color drained from Martin's face. Behind him, Officer Ramirez stepped forward, handcuffs ready. "That's enough," she said. "Martin Blackwood, you're under arrest." As they led him away, Martin's carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. "You ungrateful little brat," he shouted back at Emma, struggling against the officers. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" His voice faded down the corridor, leaving a shocked silence in its wake. Emma curled into herself, shaking with silent sobs. Theo climbed carefully onto the edge of her bed and did the only thing he could think of. He held her hand and promised, "He can't hurt you anymore, not ever." 3 days passed. Emma's physical condition improved steadily. The frostbite on her toes and fingers responded well to treatment. Her body temperature normalized, but she stopped speaking. After her father's outburst, Emma retreated into silence. She would nod or shake her head in response to direct questions. She would point to what she needed, but no words crossed her lips, as if she'd used up all her courage in that one crucial moment. Dr. Mitchell brought in a child psychologist, a gentlewoman named Dr. Patel, who sat quietly beside Emma's bed for hours, sometimes offering crayons and paper, sometimes just reading aloud from children's books. "This is a normal response to trauma," Dr. Patel explained to Manuel and Theo during one of their visits. "Her mind is protecting itself." Theo came every day after school. He would sit by Emma's bed and tell her about ordinary things, what they had for lunch in the cafeteria, the science experiment that went wrong and made green foam all over Mr. Peterson's shoes, the stray cat that had adopted their family last month. Emma never responded verbally, but her eyes followed him, alert and grateful for the connection to the normal world outside. On the 4th day, Dr. Patel brought a set of colored markers and a stack of drawing paper. "Sometimes it's easier to show than tell," she said, placing them on Emma's tray table. At first, Emma just stared at the markers. Then, slowly, she reached for the black one and began to draw. A house, large and imposing. A stick figure of a man, much taller than the small figure beside him. Dark scribbles surrounded both figures like storm clouds. Dr. Patel observed without comment. When Emma finished, she chose a red marker and added angry slashes across the small figure. "Is that you?" Dr. Patel asked softly. Emma nodded, then pushed the paper away. The next day she drew more pictures. A woman lying at the bottom of stairs, red crayon marking her head, a closet filled with darkness, a box that Dr. Patel recognized as the freezer. Each drawing revealed another piece of Emma's nightmare. Each was more disturbing than the last. "She's communicating," Dr. Patel told Officer Ramirez during their daily update. "These drawings will be valuable evidence, but more importantly, they're helping her process what happened." Ramirez studied the artwork with a grim expression. "We found her diary at the Blackwood mansion, hidden inside a teddy bear. It corroborates some of this, though in a child's cryptic way. Daddy was very angry today. I had to go in the dark place for 3 hours. Things like that." "What about the mother's death?" "Still investigating. The original ruling was accidental death, but we've reopened the case." That afternoon, Manuel brought Rosa to visit. She carried a small gift bag. "I thought she might like something of her own," Rosa explained, pulling out a soft purple teddy bear. "Hospital rooms can feel so impersonal." Emma accepted the bear with wide eyes, clutching it to her chest. She ran her fingers over its plush fur, a small smile flickering across her face for the first time since her rescue. "What will happen to her?" Rosa asked Ms. Parker in the hallway. "We're looking for an emergency foster placement," the social worker replied. "Somewhere safe and quiet while the legal process unfolds." Inside the room, Theo sat on the edge of Emma's bed, showing her his math homework. "I hate fractions," he complained good-naturedly. "My teacher says they're important, but when am I ever going to need to know that 1/3 of 24 is 8? Emma stared at his notebook, then at his face. She hugged the purple bear tighter. "You don't have to talk," Theo assured her. "It's okay." Hospital routine continued around them. Nurses checking vitals, orderlies delivering dinner trays, Dr. Mitchell making her evening rounds. "You're doing much better physically," she told Emma. "We might be able to discharge you soon." Fear flashed across Emma's face. "To a foster home," Dr. Mitchell clarified quickly. "Somewhere safe." After everyone left for the night, with only the night nurse checking in periodically, Emma lay awake in the darkness. The hospital sounds, beeping monitors, squeaking shoes in the hallway, distant voices, were so different from the silence of her room at home, where she'd learned to lie perfectly still and quiet, so as not to attract her father's attention. A soft knock on her door startled her. Theo peeked in. "I forgot my backpack," he whispered, retrieving it from beside the chair. "Sorry to wake you." Emma sat up, clutching her purple bear. Their eyes met in the dim light from the hallway. "Theo?" Her voice was barely audible, rusty from disuse. He froze, shocked to hear her speak. "Yeah?" I saw him push her. Theo moved closer to the bed. "Push who?" "My mom." Emma's fingers dug into the bear's plush body. They were fighting. He pushed her down the stairs. Then he just watched her, didn't call for help, didn't try to save her. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice grew stronger with each word, as if finally releasing the terrible secret was washing away some of the fear. "He saw me watching. That's when everything changed. That's when he started hurting me, to make sure I wouldn't tell." Theo stood motionless, the weight of her confession settling over him like a heavy blanket. "We need to tell Officer Ramirez," he said finally. Emma nodded, exhausted by the effort of breaking her silence, but somehow lighter. "Tomorrow," she whispered. "Will you stay until I fall asleep?" Theo glanced at the door, then back at Emma. He pulled the chair close to her bed and sat down. "I'll stay," he promised. Emma closed her eyes, her breathing gradually slowing as she drifted into the first peaceful sleep she'd had in months. The Blackwood mansion stood silent on Oak Ridge Hill, yellow crime scene tape fluttering across its imposing front doors. Inside, officers Ramirez and Diaz methodically worked through each room, documenting, photographing, collecting. "Check this out," Diaz called from Catherine Blackwood's home office. "Financial records. Looks like she was planning to divorce him." Ramirez examined the papers, consultation notes from a divorce attorney, dated 3 weeks before Catherine's death, Bank statements showing substantial transfers to a separate account in Catherine's name only. She was preparing to leave, Ramirez confirmed, and take their money with her. They moved to Emma's bedroom next, a pink and white space that could have been featured in a luxury magazine, yet felt strangely unlived in. No toys scattered about, no books left open, no clothes tossed aside, everything perfectly arranged, as if for display rather than comfort. Kid lived like she was in a museum, Diaz observed, opening the closet where identical dresses hung in precise order. Ramirez knelt beside the bed, lifting the dust ruffle. Nothing underneath but polished hardwood. She moved to a white bookshelf, examining each perfectly aligned book. Behind a row of untouched classics, she found it, a small pink diary with a broken lock. "Got something," she announced, carefully opening the worn pages. The entries started 18 months ago, in the rounded handwriting of a young child. "Daddy got me a new dress for the charity ball. Mommy said it's too grown up, but Daddy said I need to look perfect because important people will be there." The entries continued, becoming increasingly concerning after Catherine's death. "Daddy locked my door again tonight. I had to use the water bottle as a bathroom. He said it's my fault for asking about Mommy. 3 days in my room now, so hungry. Daddy says I'm being punished for drawing Mommy in art class." The final entry was dated just before the freezer incident. "Daddy found Mommy's necklace under my pillow. He was so angry. He said tomorrow he would teach me the biggest lesson yet. I'm scared." Ramirez closed the diary, her hands shaking with barely controlled rage. "This is enough to put him away for child abuse, but we need more for the murder charge." They continued to the master bedroom, where the perfectionism reached new heights. Not a pillow out of place, not a speck of dust on any surface. "Check this out," Diaz called from the walk-in closet. He had pulled back an expensive suit to reveal a hidden wall safe. "Can you crack it?" Ramirez asked. Diaz grinned. "Former life, remember? Give me 10 minutes." True to his word, the safe swung open 8 minutes later. Inside lay an external hard drive, a stack of cash, and a men's watch with what appeared to be dried blood on its face. "Bingo," Ramirez said softly, carefully bagging the watch. Back at the station, the evidence room buzzed with activity. Techs processed the items from the Blackwood house, while others analyzed security footage from Westlake Industries. "Got something," called the tech, reviewing the footage. "Look at this." The screen showed Martin Blackwood leading Emma through a service entrance. The timestamp matched the evening of the incident. Emma's body language spoke volumes, shoulders hunched, head down, feet dragging. Not a child playing a game, but one being led to punishment. Later footage showed Martin leaving alone, checking his watch, straightening his tie before walking briskly to his car. "Time of departure?" Ramirez asked. 7:48 p.m. The janitor and his son found her at approximately 8:53 p.m., so she was in there over an hour. Ramirez made a note in her file. "What about footage from the night Catherine Blackwood died?" "Still working on that. We've subpoenaed their home security records." Ramirez nodded. "Keep me posted and get that watch to the lab ASAP. I want to know if that's Catherine's blood." In the interrogation room, Martin Blackwood sat stone-faced. Beside his attorney, his earlier emotional displays completely vanished. The mask had fallen away, revealing the cold calculation beneath. "My client maintains his innocence," Whitfield stated for the record. "This is clearly a case of misunderstanding and media sensationalism." Ramirez laid out photographs from the freezer, from Emma's medical examination, from the diary. "Some misunderstanding," she commented dryly. Martin didn't even glance at the images. "I want to see my daughter." "That's not happening," Ramirez replied. "Emma is under protective custody." "She's a confused child with an overactive imagination," Martin countered, his voice eerily calm. "She needs her father. What she needs is safety from the man who locked her in a freezer," Ramirez shot back. "The man who may have murdered her mother." For the first time, a flicker of genuine emotion crossed Martin's face. Not concern or outrage, but calculation. You have nothing to connect me to Catherine's death, he said. It was ruled an accident months ago. Ramirez leaned forward. Cases get reopened when new evidence comes to light, Mr. Blackwood. A knock at the door interrupted them. Officer Diaz entered, handing Ramirez a note. She read it, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. It seems your daughter has decided to talk, Mr. Blackwood. She has quite a story to tell. Martin's composure finally cracked. His hand slammed down on the table. She's lying. Whitfield placed a restraining hand on his client's arm. Mr. Blackwood, I advise you to remain silent. But the damage was done. In that moment of rage, Martin Blackwood had revealed what lurked beneath his polished exterior, the violence that Emma knew all too well, the violence that had likely ended Catherine Blackwood's life. Ramirez gathered her files and stood. We'll continue this conversation after we hear what Emma has to say. In the meantime, you might want to reconsider your plea. Child endangerment carries a substantial sentence. Add murder, and you're looking at life. She left Martin and his attorney alone, the weight of mounting evidence hanging heavily in the air between them. Dr. Patel arranged the interview room carefully. Comfortable chairs, soft lighting, a small table with art supplies, a discreet recording device. Emma sat with her purple teddy bear clutched to her chest, Theo beside her for moral support. Officer Ramirez waited patiently while Dr. Patel established rapport. Remember, Emma, you can stop any time you need to, Dr. Patel assured her. And you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to. Emma nodded, her small fingers working. Nervously at the teddy bear's ear, she glanced at Theo, who gave her an encouraging smile. Can you tell us about your mom? Dr. Patel began gently. Emma's face softened at the mention of Catherine. She was pretty and kind. She made heart-shaped pancakes on Saturdays. A shadow crossed her face, but she was sad a lot, especially after she and Daddy would fight. Did they fight often? Ramirez asked. Emma nodded. More and more. Mommy wanted to move away. She said Daddy wasn't the man she married anymore. When did the fight start? Emma considered this, her forehead wrinkling with the effort of remembering. After Daddy's company got really big, he started acting different. Mommy said money was changing him. How did it change him? Dr. Patel prompted. He got mean, Emma said simply. Not just to Mommy, but to everyone. He fired his old friends from the company. He stopped letting Mommy invite her sister to visit. He made rules about everything. What we could wear, what we could eat, who we could talk to. Did he hurt you or your mom during this time? Ramirez asked carefully. Emma hesitated, then nodded. Not hitting at first. He would grab Mommy's arm really hard when he was angry, or push her against the wall. He would lock me in my room if I didn't behave perfectly at his business dinners. She reached for a piece of paper and a crayon drawing as she continued to speak. Mommy started taking pictures of the bruises on her arms. She had a special phone that Daddy didn't know about. She kept it in her bathroom, inside a box of girl things. Emma blushed slightly. She knew Daddy would never look there. Ramirez made a note. Do you know where that phone is now? Emma shook her head. Daddy must have found it after she died. Dr. Patel leaned forward slightly. Can you tell us what happened that night, Emma? The night your mother died. Emma's crayon stilled on the paper. For a long moment she sat, frozen, her eyes distant. Theo reached out and touched her hand gently, grounding her. It was after dinner, Emma began, her voice barely above a whisper. I was supposed to be in bed, but I heard them yelling. Mommy said she was leaving and taking me with her. Daddy said she couldn't take his daughter away from him. Her voice broke slightly, like I was a thing that belonged to him, not a person. She resumed drawing, harsh, angry strokes across the paper. I snuck out to the stairs. They were in the hall below. Mommy had suitcases. She said our new place was ready and we were leaving that night. Emma swallowed hard. Daddy got really quiet. That's when he's scariest. When he gets quiet. Tears began to roll down her cheeks, but her voice remained steady. He said, You're not taking my daughter. Mommy said, Watch me. She turned to go up the stairs and Emma's breath hitched. He pushed her, hard. She fell all the way down to the bottom. There was a crack when her head hit the marble floor. The room fell silent except for the soft scratch of Emma's crayon on paper. The drawing took shape. A stick figure woman sprawled at the bottom of a staircase, a pool of red crayon around her head. "What did your father do then?" Ramirez asked gently. "Nothing," Emma whispered. "He just stood there, watching her, not calling for help, not trying to see if she was okay, just watching, like he was waiting for something. And you? What did you do?" I ran back to my room. I was so scared. I hid under my blankets. Shame colored her voice. "I should have helped her." "You were a little girl, Emma," Dr. Patel said firmly. "There was nothing you could have done. What happened next?" Ramirez prompted. "I heard Daddy on the phone much later. He was telling someone there had been an accident. His voice sounded all wrong, like he was acting in a school play." Emma set down her crayon. "The ambulance came, but it was too late. Mommy was already gone." "Did your father know you had seen what happened?" Emma nodded, fresh tears spilling. "The next morning he came to my room. He sat on my bed and asked if I had heard anything the night before. I was so scared, I lied and said no." Her voice dropped even lower. "But he knew I was lying. He said, 'Emma, your mother had a terrible accident. She fell down the stairs. That's what happened. Do you understand?'" "He was telling you what to say," Ramirez observed. "Yes. And after the funeral, he started watching me all the time. The punishments got worse. The closet, the basement, and finally—" She trailed off, unable to speak of the freezer again. Theo squeezed her hand. "You're so brave, Emma." Emma looked up at Officer Ramirez, a new determination in her eyes. "Is my daddy going to jail?" "We're going to do everything we can to make sure of it," Ramirez promised. "Your testimony is going to help us do that." "Will I have to see him again?" Fear crept back into her voice. "Eventually, in court," Ramirez admitted. "But we'll be there with you. You won't be alone." Emma nodded, clutching her teddy bear tighter. "I want him to know I'm not scared of him anymore," she declared, though the tremor in her voice belied her words. "I want him to know I remember what he did to Mommy." Millfield split in two over the Blackwood case. The town's social hierarchy, once so clearly defined, fractured along unexpected lines. "I've known Martin for 20 years, Mayor Wilson declared at the emergency town council meeting. "This is clearly a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by the media." The council chambers overflowed with residents. On one side sat Millfield's elite, business owners who depended on Westlake Industries contracts, socialites who shared country club memberships with Martin, politicians who had accepted his campaign donations. On the other side were teachers, nurses, working-class families, people who recognized the hollow look in Emma's eyes from their own experiences or professional training. "Misunderstanding?" Rosa Vasquez stood, her voice shaking with emotion. "That child nearly died in a freezer. My son found her blue with cold, barely conscious." The mayor adjusted his tie, a Westlake Industries holiday gift. "Mrs. Vasquez, no one is questioning your son's actions. He did the right thing, but we shouldn't rush to judgment about Martin's intentions." "His intentions?" Manuel joined his wife, anger overcoming his usual reserve. "The security footage shows him locking that freezer door and walking away. What possible intention could justify that?" Whispers erupted around the room. The footage hadn't been publicly released, but rumors spread quickly in small towns. Outside, town hall news vans lined the street. The Blackwood case had captured national attention. The wealthy CEO, the motherless child, the dramatic rescue. Reporters ambushed local residents for comments, constructing their narratives before the facts were fully known. The Vasquez family felt the town's division most acutely. Some neighbors brought casseroles and offers of support. Others crossed the street to avoid them. Manuel's co-workers at Westlake Industries walked a careful line, privately supportive, publicly neutral. Theo faced his own challenges at school. Some kids treated him like a hero. Others, whose parents' livelihoods depended on Westlake Industries, whispered, "Liar," when he passed in the hallway. "They're saying Emma made it all up for attention," Jessica Kim reported during lunch. Tyler, Wilson's dad, told him Mr. Blackwood would never hurt his own daughter. "Tyler Wilson's dad also takes golfing trips on Mr. Blackwood's private jet," Theo retorted. I saw her in that freezer. I heard her father threaten her at the hospital. It's, all real. The school counselor called Theo to her office that afternoon. "How are you handling all this attention?" she asked. Theo shrugged. "I'm fine. I just want Emma to be okay." "That's admirable. But this situation, it's complicated. Sometimes children misinterpret adult actions, and sometimes adults make mistakes. Without meaning harm, Theo stared at her, realizing she was reciting talking points. "Mrs. Green, are you saying Mr. Blackwood accidentally locked his daughter in a freezer?" The counselor shifted uncomfortably. "I'm saying we should all keep an open mind until the legal process runs its course." That evening, Manuel received a call from Westlake Industries HR department. "In light of recent events, we think it's best if you take some paid leave," the director explained smoothly. "Just until things settle down." "You mean until people forget what Martin Blackwood did to his daughter?" Manuel challenged. "We're a family-friendly company, Mr. Vasquez. This negative publicity is affecting morale." Rosa fumed after Manuel hung up. "They're punishing you for doing the right thing." "It's not punishment. It's pressure," Manuel replied wearily. "They want us to back down, change our story. Will you?" Theo asked from the doorway, where he'd been listening. Manuel pulled his son into a hug. "Never. Some things matter more than jobs." The local newspaper ran competing editorials, one supporting Martin Blackwood as a pillar of the community suffering a tragic misunderstanding, the other questioning why wealth and status seemed to create a presumption of innocence despite damning evidence. The district attorney called a press conference. "We are pursuing charges of child endangerment, child abuse, and first-degree murder in the death of Catherine Blackwood," she announced. "The evidence suggests a pattern of escalating violence culminating in 2 tragic events." Martin's lawyer immediately held his own press conference on the courthouse steps. "My client categorically denies these outrageous allegations. Catherine Blackwood's death was a tragic accident, already investigated and ruled as such months ago. As for the recent incident, Mr. Blackwood had no knowledge his daughter was in that freezer. He is as horrified as anyone and is fully cooperating with authorities to understand how this misunderstanding occurred. That night, someone threw a brick through the Vasquez's living room window. Attached was a note: "Leave Blackwood alone or leave town." Officer Ramirez arrived to take the report. "We're seeing this on both sides," she told them grimly. "Someone slashed the mayor's tires yesterday. People are choosing sides and acting on emotion rather than facts." "What about Emma?" Theo asked. "Is she safe?" "We've moved her to a confidential location," Ramirez assured him. "Her foster family is experienced with traumatized children, and there's a protective detail watching the house 24/7. "Can I see her?" Theo asked. Ramirez hesitated. "It's complicated. For her safety." "She trusts me," Theo interrupted. "She needs to know she's not alone." Ramirez studied the boy who had shown such courage and compassion. "I'll see what I can arrange," she promised. "But it would have to be carefully coordinated, and your parents would need to agree." Manuel and Rosa exchanged looks. Despite the risks, the threats, Manuel's job situation, the community pressure, they nodded in unison. "Theo's right," Rosa said firmly. "That child needs all the support she can get." As Ramirez left, Theo helped his father board up the broken window. Outside, more news vans had arrived, their satellite dishes reaching toward the night sky like metallic flowers, searching for light. "Will things ever go back to normal?" Theo wondered aloud. Manuel placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "No, mijo. But sometimes normal isn't what it should be. Sometimes it needs to change." The Taylor family lived in a modest farmhouse on the outskirts of neighboring Riverdale, 15 miles from Millfield. Sarah Taylor was a retired child psychologist. Her husband, James, taught middle school science. They had fostered dozens of children over 20 years, specializing in trauma cases. Emma arrived at their home with only a small suitcase of hastily purchased clothes and her purple teddy bear. The Taylors welcomed her with quiet warmth, showing her to a sunlit bedroom with a handmade quilt and shelves of children's books. You can arrange things however you like, Sarah told her. This is your space. Emma stood in the center of the room, clutching her bear, overwhelmed by choices after months of rigid control. Would you like to see the rest of the house? James asked gently. Emma nodded, following him silently through the comfortable rooms. A country kitchen with copper pots hanging above an island. A living room with mismatched, well-worn furniture. A sunroom filled with plants. A fenced backyard where a golden retriever dozed in a patch of sunlight. That's Sunny, James explained. She's a therapy dog, very gentle. Emma approached cautiously. The dog raised her head, tail thumping lazily against the wooden deck. When Emma extended a hesitant hand, Sunny nuzzled it softly. The first smile since the hospital bloomed briefly on Emma's face. Days passed in a careful routine. Sarah homeschooled Emma while the district attorney prepared for preliminary hearings. A police cruiser parked discreetly at the end of the drive, officers rotating shifts. Emma spoke little, but gradually began to relax in the Taylors' predictable, nurturing environment. Each night, Sarah sat with her until she fell asleep, the bedside lamp always left on, the door always ajar. Each morning, James made pancakes in different shapes, stars, hearts, animals, until he discovered Emma's preference for butterflies. My mom used to make heart ones, she whispered one morning, her first voluntary comment. James nodded, as if 7-year-olds regularly went silent for days before commenting on pancake shapes. Hearts are good too. Maybe tomorrow? Emma nodded, feeding a piece of butterfly wing to Sunny under the table. Ms. Parker visited weekly, bringing updates on the case and assessing Emma's adjustment. You're doing remarkably well, she told the Saws Taylors during one such visit. She's showing signs of trust, which is crucial for her recovery. She still has nightmares, Sarah reported, and she's hypervigilant, startles at loud noises, constantly checks where the exits are. That's normal for what she's been through, Ms. Parker assured them. The fact that she's bonding with Sunny is an excellent sign. There's a boy who wants to visit, Ms. Parker mentioned as she prepared to leave. Theo Vasquez. He's the one who found Emma. Sarah and James exchanged looks. Is that wise, given the security concerns? James asked. Officer Ramirez thinks it can be arranged safely. Emma formed a strong connection with Theo during the rescue and hospital stay. Dr. Patel believes seeing him could be beneficial. After consultation with the security detail, the visit was arranged for the following Saturday. Officer Ramirez would drive the Vasquez family to the safe house through an indirect route to ensure they weren't followed. The morning of the visit, Emma showed the first signs of anticipation they'd seen. Changing her outfit twice, asking Sarah if they could bake cookies, positioning herself by the window to watch the driveway. When the unmarked police car finally pulled up, Emma pressed her hands against the glass, her breath fogging the pain. Theo emerged from the back seat, followed by his parents. At the door, Emma hung back shyly as the adults exchanged greetings. Then Theo spotted her and smiled. "Hi, Emma." She stepped forward hesitantly. "Hi." The adults moved to the kitchen, giving the children space, while remaining within earshot. Sunny trotted over to inspect the visitors, receiving appreciative pats from Theo. "You have a dog," Theo observed, kneeling to rub Sunny's ears. "She's a therapy dog," Emma explained, her voice gaining strength. "She helps people feel better when they're sad or scared." "Does she help you?" Emma nodded. "She sleeps on my bed. She knows when I have bad dreams." They moved to the backyard, sitting on the porch steps while Sunny chased squirrels along the fence line. Emma spoke more than she had in days, showing Theo her new books, explaining how James made butterfly pancakes. From the kitchen window, the adults watched with a mixture of relief and sadness. Relieved to see Emma acting like a normal child, sad that such simple interactions felt like momentous victories. "She hasn't smiled like that since she got here," Sarah commented. "Theo talks about her every day," Rosa replied. "He's been so worried." In the yard, Emma showed Theo how Sunny could fetch a tennis ball. They took turns throwing it, laughing when the dog dropped it at Emma's feet every time, ignoring Theo's calls. She knows who needs her most, Theo observed. Emma's smile faded. Everyone at school probably thinks I'm weird now. Some kids are saying dumb stuff, Theo admitted. But my friends Jessica and Marcus keep telling everyone how brave you are. I don't feel brave. That's what makes you even braver. My dad says courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing, even when you are scared. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching Sonny patrol the yard. They're going to make me talk in court, Emma said finally, her voice small again, about what my dad did to my mom about the freezer. Theo picked up a stick and snapped it in half, then quarters, then eighths. Yeah, I have to talk too, about finding you. Are you scared? Yeah, he admitted. But we'll both be there, and Officer Ramirez, and your foster parents seem really nice. They are, Emma agreed. But what? She looked down at her shoes. What if nobody believes us? What if my dad doesn't go to jail? What if he comes back for me? The fear in her voice made Theo instinctively reach for her hand. Officer Ramirez won't let that happen, and neither will I. Inside, the adults discussed the upcoming preliminary hearing, keeping their voices low. Martin's lawyer is pushing for bail, Officer Ramirez informed them. We're fighting it, but he's arguing that Martin isn't a flight risk and has ties to the community. Ties to the community? Manuel scoffed. The community he tried to flee from when he was caught? The DA is using that attempted flight to the Caymans against him, Ramirez assured him. Plus, we now have the forensics back on the watch found in his safe. The blood matches Catherine's DNA. As the afternoon waned, Emma grew quieter, knowing the visit would soon end. When it was time for the Vasquez family to leave, she clung to Theo's hand. You'll come back? As soon as they let me, he promised. That night, for the first time since her arrival, Emma slept without nightmares, Sonny curled protectively at her feet. Millfield County Courthouse stood as an island of imposed calm amid a sea of media trucks and demonstrators. On one side of the street, supporters held "Justice for Emma" signs. Across the barricades, a smaller but vocal group displayed "Do Boo Bait" process for Blackwood placards, many bearing Westlake Industries logos. Inside, the preliminary hearing commenced in a packed courtroom. District Attorney Eleanor Chen, a sharp-featured woman with 20 years of prosecution experience, arranged her files methodically. The state is prepared to present overwhelming evidence that Martin Blackwood not only endangered his daughter's life by locking her in an industrial freezer, but also murdered his wife Catherine Blackwood 6 months ago, she announced to Judge Harriet Monroe. Body Defense Attorney Lawrence Whitfield rose smoothly. Your Honor, these allegations are preposterous. Mr. Blackwood is a respected businessman and dedicated father suffering from a tragic misunderstanding and character assassination. Martin Blackwood sat beside his lawyer in an impeccably tailored suit, his expression appropriately solemn yet confident. He had mastered the art of appearing simultaneously wronged and dignified for the courtroom sketch artists. Judge Monroe, known for her no-nonsense approach, peered over her reading glasses. Save the speeches for the jury, counselors. This is a preliminary hearing to determine if sufficient evidence exists to proceed to trial. The prosecution called Officer Ramirez first. She outlined the discovery of Emma in the freezer, the security footage showing Martin locking the door, and evidence from Emma's medical examination indicating prolonged abuse. Objection, Whitfield interrupted. Officer Ramirez is not a medical expert. Sustained, Judge Monroe ruled. Restrict your testimony to direct observations, officer, Ramirez continued methodically, describing the diary found in Emma's room and the watch recovered from Martin's safe, which forensics confirmed contained Catherine Blackwood's blood. During cross-examination, Whitfield worked to undermine Ramirez's testimony. Isn't it possible Emma accidentally locked herself in while playing? Children do get into dangerous situations through curiosity. The lock was electronic, requiring a code, Ramirez replied evenly. And the security footage clearly shows Mr. Blackwood entering the code, checking the door was secure, and walking away. And regarding Catherine Blackwood's death, wasn't that thoroughly investigated at the time and ruled accidental? New evidence has emerged warranting reinvestigation. Conveniently timed evidence, Whitfield suggested, with a theatrical skepticism that drew murmurs from Blackwood's supporters. Dr. Mitchell testified next about Emma's physical condition when admitted to the hospital. Her core temperature was dangerously low at 89.6 degrees. Without immediate medical intervention, she would have died from hypothermia. And did you observe other concerning physical findings? D.A. Chen asked. Yes, Emma had healing bruises on her arms and back, consistent with being grabbed forcefully. She showed signs of malnutrition, and there were older injuries that had healed improperly, suggesting a pattern of untreated harm. Whitfield's cross-examination focused on alternative explanations. Couldn't these injuries result from normal childhood activities? Emma takes ballet, does she not? A physically demanding pursuit. Dr. Mitchell's expression hardened. In my 20 years of pediatric practice, I've seen the difference between accidental injuries and inflicted ones. Emma's injuries follow patterns consistent with abuse, not dance practice. As the morning progressed, the technical evidence mounted, freezer temperature logs showing it was set to -10 degrees Fahrenheit, security footage timestamps indicating Emma was locked inside for 65 minutes, cell phone records, revealing Martin had called his private pilot about an urgent flight to the Caymans shortly after leaving Westlake Industries. Court recessed for lunch. In the hallway, Manuel and Rosa Vasquez waited with Theo, who would testify that afternoon. Ms. Parker had brought Emma to a separate witness room where she would remain until called to testify. "How are you holding up?" Officer Ramirez asked. "Theo." "Okay, I guess," he replied, though his bouncing leg betrayed his nerves. "Is Emma scared?" "She's doing remarkably well," Ms. Parker assured him. Sonny is with her. The afternoon session began with the medical examiner who had performed Catherine Blackwood's autopsy. He explained that while he had initially ruled her death accidental, new evidence had caused him to reconsider. The pattern of injuries was technically consistent with a fall, but in reviewing the case, several findings troubled me. The angle of impact to the skull suggested she was propelled with force, not simply tripping, and defensive bruising on her arms indicated she may have been trying to protect herself. The defense objected repeatedly, but Judge Monroe allowed most of the testimony, noting it went to establishing probable cause. Then came Theo's turn. He approached the witness stand, looking smaller than his 12 years in the cavernous courtroom. After being sworn in, he glanced at his parents, who nodded encouragingly. D.A. Chen approached. "Theo, can you tell us what happened the evening you found Emma Blackwood?" In a clear voice that gained strength as he spoke, Theo recounted hearing Emma's cries, seeing Martin Blackwood leaving hurriedly, and the desperate efforts to free Emma from the freezer. "And what was Emma's condition when you got the freezer open?" "She was really cold. Her lips were blue. She was shaking, but not like normal shivering. It was different, scarier. She could barely talk." "Did she say anything to you?" "She said her dad put her in there as punishment. She said he told her he'd come back in an hour, but she was afraid he wouldn't." Martin Blackwood's jaw tightened visibly at this testimony, a reaction not lost on Judge Monroe, who watched the defendant closely throughout. Whitfield's cross-examination was cautious. Attacking a child who had saved another child would play poorly with any future jury. "Theo, isn't it possible you misunderstood what Emma said? She was suffering from hypothermia, which can cause confusion." "No, sir," Theo replied firmly. "She said the same thing at the hospital before her dad showed up, and when he did come, he tried to make her say it was a game, but she was too scared to even look at him." Whitfield had no further questions. As the day ended, Judge Monroe reviewed her notes. "We will continue tomorrow with the testimony of Emma Blackwood and further forensic evidence. Court is adjourned." Outside, the media frenzy intensified as participants emerged. D.A. Chen made a brief statement. "Today's evidence clearly establishes probable cause to proceed with all charges. Justice for Emma and Catherine Blackwood is long overdue." Whitfield countered with his own press conference. The prosecution is building a case on the confused recollections of a traumatized child and circumstantial evidence. We remain confident that Mr. Blackwood will be fully exonerated. Behind these public statements, both sides knew that tomorrow's testimony would prove decisive. A 7-year-old girl would take the stand against her father, and the whole town would be watching. The night before Emma's testimony, Theo couldn't sleep. His mind replayed the freezer door opening, Emma's small body huddled against frozen food boxes, her blue lips, her vacant eyes. The memory haunted him, not just for its horror, but for what might have happened if he hadn't heard her faint cries. "Mijo, you should rest," Rosa said, finding him at the kitchen table at midnight, a glass of milk untouched before him. "Tomorrow will be difficult enough. What if I said something wrong?" "Today?" Theo worried. "What if I messed up the case?" Rosa sat beside him, pulling him close. "You told the truth. That's all anyone can ask. But what if the truth isn't enough? What if Mr. Blackwood's expensive lawyer twists everything around?" Manuel joined them, his work uniform exchanged for the same suit he wore to church on Sundays. "The truth has power, Theo, even against money and influence." "Is that really how the world works?" Theo challenged, old enough now to recognize the gap between childhood ideals and adult realities. His parents exchanged glances. "And not always," Manuel admitted, "but this time, I believe it will." Morning arrived with a nervous household preparing for another day in court. Theo picked at his breakfast until Rosa gently reminded him he needed strength for the day ahead. At the courthouse, the crowd had doubled overnight as news of Emma's upcoming testimony spread. Security was tighter, with additional officers checking IDs at the entrance. Inside, Theo and his parents were directed to a small waiting room where Officer Ramirez met them. "The defense is pushing hard this morning," she informed them. "They've filed a motion to have Emma's testimony given in private chambers rather than open court." "Is that good or bad?" Manuel asked. "Good for Emma, less traumatic. Potentially good for the defense, too. Less public impact from her testimony." Ramirez checked her watch. "The judge is ruling on it now." Theo fidgeted with his tie, which felt like it was strangling him, despite Rosa's assurances that it looked perfect. His palms were sweaty, his mouth dry. "There's something else you should know," Ramirez continued, her voice dropping. "Martin Blackwood's team has been investigating your family," Rosa stiffened. "What do you mean, investigating?" "Background checks, interviews with neighbors, searching for anything they can use to discredit your testimony. It's standard practice in high-profile cases, but still unsettling." "We have nothing to hide," Manuel declared, though worry creased his forehead. "I know that. But be prepared for potentially personal questions during cross-examination. Whitfield will try to rattle you, Theo. Remember, you just answer truthfully and directly. Don't let him provoke you into speculation or emotional outbursts." A bailiff appeared at the door. "They're ready for the Vasquez family." The courtroom fell silent as they entered. Theo kept his eyes forward, avoiding Martin Blackwood's gaze, though he could feel it burning into him from the defense table. Judge Monroe addressed the courtroom. "I've ruled that while Emma Blackwood will testify in open court, special accommodations will be made given her age and the nature of the case. A privacy screen will be placed between her and the defendant. Any intimidation or coaching from the gallery will result in immediate removal and contempt charges." Duchenne rose. "The prosecution recalls Theo Vasquez for continued examination." Theo returned to the witness stand, again swearing to tell the truth. His testimony yesterday had covered finding Emma. Today, Chen focused on what came after. "Theo, did you interact with Martin Blackwood at the hospital?" "Yes. He came to Emma's room. He was acting like a worried father at first. But when Emma told the truth about being locked in the freezer as punishment, he got really angry." "What did he do when he got angry?" "He called her an ungrateful brat. He shouted that she was betraying him after everything he'd done for her. The police had to drag him out." "And how did Emma react to her father's appearance?" "She was terrified. She started shaking and crying. She curled up like she was trying to hide. Even after he was gone, she kept saying he'd come back for her. Jenny nodded, letting the testimony stand without embellishment. No further questions. Whitfield approached for cross-examination, his smile not reaching his eyes. Theo, you and your father work as janitors at Westlake Industries, correct? Yes, sir. My dad is the head janitor. I help on weekends for extra money. And how would you characterize your father's relationship with his employer, Mr. Blackwood? Theo hesitated, sensing a trap. They don't really have a relationship. Mr. Blackwood is the boss. My dad works for him. Has your father ever expressed resentment about his position? About the difference between his lifestyle and Mr. Blackwood's? D.A. Chen stood. Objection. Relevance? I'm establishing potential bias, Your Honor, Whitfield countered. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, Counselor, Judge Monroe warned. Theo answered confidently. My dad is proud of his work. He's never complained about Mr. Blackwood's money. Whitfield changed tactics. You've become quite close to Emma Blackwood, haven't you? I guess so. I found her in the freezer. I rode with her in the ambulance. She trusts me. Would you say you feel protective of her? Perhaps even willing to exaggerate what you saw or heard to ensure she doesn't return to her father's custody. Objection, Chen's voice rang out. He's badgering a minor witness. Sustained, Judge Monroe ruled sharply. Whitfield smiled apologetically. Let me rephrase. Theo, in your desire to help Emma, is it possible you've misremembered some details about that night? No, sir, Theo replied, meeting the lawyer's gaze steadily. I remember everything clearly. It's not the kind of thing you forget, even though you were undoubtedly upset and frightened yourself, even though the situation was chaotic and emergency personnel were present. That's why I remember it so well, Theo countered. When scary things happen, they stick in your mind. Whitfield nodded, as if conceding the point. Then, casually, one last question. Your father's employment visa expires next month, doesn't it? Immigration has been investigating his status? A shocked murmur ran through the courtroom. Manuel stiffened in his seat. Objection, Chen shouted. Irrelevant and prejudicial. Withdrawn, Whitfield said smoothly, having already planted the seed. No further questions. As Theo stepped down from the witness stand, his legs felt rubbery with relief and lingering anxiety. He glanced at Martin Blackwood, who watched him with cold calculation. In that moment, Theo understood something about power and the men who wielded it. Martin Blackwood would use anything, money, influence, secrets, fear, to get what he wanted. Even after being caught, even with evidence mounting, he still believed himself untouchable. Theo took his seat beside his parents, Rosa squeezing his hand in silent support. Manuel's face remained impassive, but a muscle worked in his jaw. Did you know? Theo whispered. Manuel nodded almost imperceptibly. It's being handled, he murmured. Don't worry. But Theo did worry, not just for his family, but for Emma. If Martin Blackwood would investigate and threaten a janitor's family in open court, what might he do to his own daughter if he regained control of her? Emma sat cross-legged on her bed at the Taylor's farmhouse, Sonny's golden head resting on her knee. Dr. Patel sat in the rocking chair nearby, neither pushing nor pulling back, simply present. Tomorrow's the big day, Dr. Patel said gently. Emma nodded, her fingers working through Sonny's fur in rhythmic strokes. I have to talk about everything, in front of everyone. Yes, but remember what we practiced. You only need to answer the questions asked. Short, clear answers. And if you don't understand or need a break, you can say so. Emma had been preparing for this moment for weeks. Daily sessions with Dr. Patel, role-playing with Ms. Parker, visits to the empty courtroom with Officer Ramirez to get familiar with the space. Still, the thought of seeing her father again, of speaking against him, made her stomach twist into knots. What if I forget everything when I see him? Emma whispered, giving voice to her deepest fear. That's why we asked for the privacy screen, Dr. Patel reminded her. You won't have to look at him. You'll only see the lawyers and the judge. Sarah Taylor appeared in the doorway with a mug of hot chocolate topped with tiny marshmallows. Thought you might like a little something special tonight." Emma accepted the mug with a small smile of thanks. These gestures still surprised her. Small. Kindnesses offered without expectation of repayment or performance. The Taylors didn't require perfection. They didn't punish mistakes. The first time Emma had accidentally spilled juice on the kitchen floor, she'd frozen in terror, waiting for consequences that never came. James had simply helped her clean it up, then shown her where they kept the paper towels for next time. "I've been thinking," Sarah said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Maybe Sonny could come with you tomorrow." Emma's eyes widened. "To court? Is that allowed?" "We've arranged it with Judge Monroe," Dr. Patel confirmed. "Sonny is a certified therapy dog. She can sit with you while you testify." Relief washed over Emma's face. "She'll help me be brave." That night, Emma dreamed of her mother, not the scary dream where Catherine lay, broken at the bottom of the stairs, but a gentle dream where they walked together through a garden of butterflies. In the dream, her mother knelt before her and cupped her face in warm hands. "You have always been stronger." "Then you know," Dream Catherine told her. "Speak your truth, my brave girl." Emma woke at dawn feeling strangely calm. She dressed carefully in the outfit Sarah had laid out. A simple blue dress with a white cardigan. Not unlike her school uniform, but softer, less restrictive. She ate the butterfly pancakes James made without being asked. She let Sarah braid her hair, neither flinching nor pulling away from the gentle touch. As they prepared to leave for the courthouse, the doorbell rang. Officer Ramirez stood on the porch with Theo beside her. "Special escort," Ramirez announced with a smile. "If that's okay." Emma's face lit up. "Theo, you came." Theo shuffled his feet, hands in his pockets. "I thought maybe it would help. You know, to see a friendly face before everything." They rode to the courthouse in a police SUV with tinted windows, Sonny sitting between Emma and Theo in the back seat. Officer Ramirez drove a deliberately indirect route, watching for any vehicles that might be following. "Your testimony was really good yesterday," Emma told Theo, her voice soft but steady. "Officer Ramirez told me." "It wasn't that hard," Theo said modestly. "I just told what happened." Was he scary?" Theo considered this. He tried to be. His lawyer asked mean questions. But the truth is stronger than their tricks. Emma nodded, absorbing this. She reached for Theo's hand, drawing comfort from its solid warmth. "I'm going to tell the truth today, about everything. I know you will." They arrived at the courthouse through a private entrance, avoiding the media gathered out front. In a small conference room, D.A. Chen reviewed the process one final time, while Sarah helped Emma adjust Sonny's therapy dog vest. "Remember, if you need a break, just say so," Chen instructed. "Judge Monroe knows this is difficult. She'll make sure you're comfortable." "I won't need a break," Emma said with quiet determination. "I want to finish it all at once." Chen studied the small girl before her, back straight, chin lifted, eyes clear, despite the fear evident in her tight grip on Sonny's leash. "You're very brave, Emma." "My mom told me I was strong," Emma replied, "in my dream last night." Chen blinked rapidly, momentarily at a loss for words. Dr. Patel stepped in smoothly. "Dreams can give us important messages sometimes." A bailiff appeared at the door. "They're ready." The courtroom fell silent as Emma entered, one hand on Sonny's harness, the other clutching her purple teddy bear. A privacy screen had been positioned to block her view of the defense table, though she could feel her father's presence like a cold draft. Judge Monroe smiled kindly. "Hello, Emma. Thank you for coming to talk with us today. Do you understand what it means to tell the truth?" "Yes, Your Honor," Emma replied, her voice small but clear. "It means saying what really happened, even if it's hard or scary." "That's right, and that's all we're asking you to do today." Emma was sworn in, her small hand resting on the Bible. She looked out at the crowded courtroom, spotting Theo and his parents in the front row. Theo gave her a thumbs up. Behind him sat Officer Ramirez, Dr. Mitchell, and others who had helped her since that night in the freezer. She wasn't alone anymore. She had people who believed her, who would protect her. With that knowledge warming her heart, Emma took a deep breath and prepared to speak her truth. The courtroom held its collective breath as D.A. Chen approached Emma. Sonny lay at Emma's feet, a warm, steady presence against the clinical chill of the courtroom. "Emma, can you tell us about the night you were found in the freezer at your father's?" "Company?" Chen began gently. Emma's hand absently stroked her teddy bear's ear, but her voice remained steady. "My dad was angry because I took my mom's necklace from his room. He said I needed a big punishment this time." "What happened next?" "He took me to his office. It was after everyone went home. He said we were going to play a new game." Emma's voice wavered slightly, but it wasn't a game. "What did he do, Emma?" "He took me to the kitchen and opened the big freezer. He said I needed to learn respect for his things, that I'd stay in there for 1 hour to think about what I'd done." Her fingers tightened on the bear. "It was so cold. I begged him not to leave me, but he locked the door and walked away." "Had your father punished you like this before?" Emma nodded. "Not the freezer, but the closet, the basement. Once he locked me in the garden shed overnight because I mentioned Mommy at his business." Dinner. Behind the privacy screen, Martin Blackwood shifted in his seat, whispering urgently to his lawyer. Judge Monroe shot him a warning glance. "Emma, did your father ever hurt you physically?" "Sometimes he grabbed my arms really hard, or pushed me against the wall. Mostly, he just locked me places, or didn't let me eat." Chen nodded, maintaining a professional demeanor despite the disturbing testimony. "I'd like to ask you about your mother now. Can you tell us what happened the night she died?" The courtroom grew impossibly quieter. This was the heart of the case, a child's testimony about a death ruled accidental months ago. Emma took a deep breath, her hand finding Sonny's fur for comfort. "They were fighting. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard them shouting. Mommy said she was leaving and taking me with her. She said she had proof of what Daddy was really like." "What kind of proof, Emma?" "Pictures on her secret phone of bruises and recordings of him threatening her. She kept them in her special hiding place." At the defense table, Martin's face darkened. Whitfield placed a restraining hand on his arm. "What happened next, Emma?" "I snuck out to the stairs. Mommy had suitcases. She told Daddy she'd filed papers with her lawyer, that it was over." Emma's voice grew smaller. "Daddy got that scary quiet. Then Mommy turned to come up the stairs to get me, and he pushed her hard. She fell all the way down." Emma's composure finally cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "There was blood, so much blood, and Daddy just stood there watching. He didn't call for help. He didn't try to save her," Judge Monroe intervened. "Would you like a break, Emma?" Emma wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "No, Your Honor, I want to finish." Chen continued gently. "What did your father do after your mother fell?" "He saw me watching. I ran back to my room and hid under the covers. Later, he came in and sat on my bed. He said Mommy had an accident, that she fell. He made me promise not to say anything different." Emma's eyes, red-rimmed but resolute, lifted to the judge. "He said no one would believe me anyway because I'm just a kid." Chen closed her notepad. "Thank you, Emma. You've been very brave." To the judge, she added, "No further questions." Whitfield approached cautiously for cross-examination, aware of the courtroom's sympathy for the child witness. "Emma, you've been through a lot, and we appreciate your testimony," he began, his voice gentler than when questioning Theo. "I just have a few clarifying questions. When you say you saw your father push your mother, where exactly were you standing?" "At the top of the stairs, holding the banister, and it was nighttime, correct? How well could you see in the dark?" "The hall light was on, and the light from Daddy's study. I could see everything." Whitfield nodded. "You mentioned your mother had a secret phone with evidence. Did you ever actually see this phone?" "Yes. She showed me once when Daddy was on a business trip. She said if anything happened to her, I should tell her sister about it." Whitfield faltered slightly, this detail apparently new to him. "And did you tell her sister?" "I tried. After the funeral. But Daddy wouldn't let me talk to Aunt Melissa alone. Then he stopped letting her visit at all." Whitfield changed tactics. "Emma, you've been staying with the Taylor family, correct? They've been very nice to you." "Yes. And you'd like to stay with them, wouldn't you? Rather than return to your father?" "Objection," Chen interjected. "Irrelevant and leading." "Sustained," Judge Monroe ruled. Whitfield pressed on. Emma, isn't it possible that in the trauma of your mother's death, your memory of that night became confused, that perhaps she simply fell, as was originally determined? Emma's chin lifted slightly. No, I saw what happened. Children often have vivid imaginations, especially in times of stress. It wasn't imagination, Emma interrupted, her voice suddenly stronger. I know what I saw. My daddy pushed my mommy, and then he watched her die. And when he knew I saw, he started hurting me, too. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Behind the privacy screen, Martin stood abruptly, his control finally snapping. She's lying, he shouted. This is Catherine's doing. She poisoned my daughter against me. Judge Monroe banged her gavel. Mr. Blackwood, sit down immediately. Emma, tell the truth. Martin continued, his voice unrecognizable with rage. After everything I've done for you, all the sacrifices. Emma shrank back in her chair, terror flooding her face. Sunny jumped to her feet, positioning herself protectively between Emma and the sound of her father's voice. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Remove the defendant, Judge Monroe ordered. Bailiffs moved to restrain Martin, who continued shouting as they dragged him toward the door. You ungrateful little brat, you're nothing without me. Nothing in that moment of chaos. Emma made a decision. She stood, stepped around the privacy screen, and faced her father directly for the first time since the hospital. I'm not afraid of you anymore, she said, her voice somehow carrying over the commotion. The room fell silent. Martin stared at his daughter, momentarily stunned by her defiance. I remember everything, Emma continued. Sunny pressed against her. Leg, Theo half risen from his seat in the gallery. And now everyone else knows too. For one unguarded moment, Martin Blackwood's mask fell completely away. The calculated charm, the practiced concern, the righteous indignation, all gone, replaced by naked rage and something else, fear. For the first time, he realized he might not win as the bailiffs resumed removing him from the courtroom. Judge Monroe addressed Emma gently. That was very brave, but please return to the witness stand. Emma complied, her steps steadier than before. Something had shifted in that confrontation, a transfer of power from father to daughter, from abuser to survivor. Court is in recess for 15 minutes, Judge Monroe announced. Ms. Chen, Mr. Whitfield, in my chambers. Now. Judge Monroe's chambers buzzed with tension. The judge sat behind her desk, glasses perched on the end of her nose, studying both attorneys with a penetrating gaze. Mr. Whitfield, your client's outburst was inexcusable. I could hold him in contempt. Right now. I apologize, Your Honor. Mr. Blackwood was understandably emotional hearing these false accusations from his daughter. Save it, Judge Monroe interrupted. After what I just witnessed, your client's character speaks for itself. She turned to D.A. Chen. I'm granting your motion to have Emma's testimony concluded. She's been through enough. Thank you, Your Honor, Chen replied. We have additional evidence to present regardless. When court resumed, Martin Blackwood was notably subdued, his earlier fury replaced by a calculating stillness. The spectators, still buzzing about his outburst, fell silent as Judge Monroe entered. In light of the defendant's behavior, Emma Blackwood's testimony is complete. She will not be recalled to the stand. To the gallery, she added, this court will not tolerate intimidation of witnesses, particularly child witnesses. Day Chen called her final witness, Catherine Blackwood's sister, Melissa Reynolds, who had flown in from Seattle the previous night. Ms. Reynolds, when did you last see your sister alive? Chen began. 3 weeks before her death, Melissa replied, her resemblance to Catherine striking enough to make Martin shift uncomfortably. She came to Seattle to consult a divorce attorney, one Martin wouldn't know about. Did she tell you why she was seeking a divorce? Catherine said Martin had changed, become controlling, then verbally abusive, then physically threatening. She was making an escape plan for herself and Emma. Objection, Whitfield interjected. Hearsay. Your Honor, this goes to Catherine Blackwood's state of mind prior to her death, Chen countered. I'll allow it, Judge Monroe ruled. Continue. Melissa described her sister's careful preparations, the secret bank account, the apartment leased. Under Melissa's name, the evidence Catherine had accumulated. She mentioned a hidden phone, Chen asked. Yes. Catherine kept a prepaid phone Martin didn't know about. She documented everything, photographs of bruises, recordings of threats, dates and times of incidents. She kept it in her bathroom inside a feminine products box. And after her death, did you, look for this phone? I tried. When I came for the funeral, I checked her hiding place while helping organize her things. It was gone. Melissa's voice hardened. Martin watched me like a hawk the entire time I was there. He even went through my luggage before I left. When was the last time you spoke with your niece, Emma? At the funeral. She tried to tell me something about her mother's death, but Martin interrupted. After that, my calls went unanswered. My emails, too. Eventually, Martin told me Emma was too fragile for contact with me. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't prove it. I consulted a lawyer about fighting for visitation, but without evidence of abuse. Thank you, Ms. Reynolds, Chen said gently. No further questions. Whitfield's cross-examination was brief and careful, aware that attacking Catherine's sister would only further damage Martin's image. After Melissa stepped down, Chen addressed the court. Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence to present. Yesterday evening, acting on information from Emma Blackwood and Melissa Reynolds, investigators executed another search warrant at the Blackwood residence. She held up an evidence bag containing a phone. This prepaid phone was found behind a false panel in Martin Blackwood's home office safe, the same safe where we previously recovered Catherine Blackwood's blood-stained watch. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Whitfield leapt to his feet. Objection! This was not disclosed to the defense. The warrant was executed after yesterday's proceedings, counsel, Judge Monroe noted. I'll allow it, subject to authentication. A technical analyst testified to recovering deleted data from the phone, photographs showing Catherine's bruised arms and torso, audio recordings of Martin threatening her, and a video diary entry from 3 days before her death. The court watched in stunned silence as Catherine Blackwood's face filled the monitor, her expression resolute, despite a fading bruise on her cheek. If you're seeing this, something has happened to me, she began. Martin's behavior has escalated beyond emotional abuse. Last night he threatened to kill me if I tried to leave with Emma. I'm documenting everything in case, she paused, visibly gathering strength, in case I don't make it. Please, whoever finds this, protect my daughter. Martin will turn his rage on her next. Martin Blackwood's face had gone ashen. Beside him, Whitfield scribbled furiously on a legal pad, but the damage was irreparable. Catherine's voice from beyond the grave had sealed his fate. After the video concluded, Chen addressed Judge Monroe. The state rests, Your Honor. The preliminary hearing concluded with Judge Monroe's ruling. Based on the evidence presented, I find probable cause to bind the defendant over for trial on all charges. Additionally, bail is denied. Mr. Blackwood will remain in custody. As the bailiffs approached to escort Martin back to jail, he finally spoke, his voice a shadow of its former authority. This isn't over. I have resources you can't imagine. Judge Monroe fixed him with a steely gaze. Mr. Blackwood, I suggest you direct those resources toward your defense. You're going to need them. In the hallway outside, Emma waited with the Taylors, Sonny, and Officer Ramirez. When Chen emerged, Emma asked the question foremost in her mind. Is it over? Chen knelt to her level. The hearing is over, and the judge ruled in our favor. Your father will stay in jail while we prepare for the full trial. Will I have to testify again? Maybe, but not for several months, and we have much more evidence now, thanks to you. Emma nodded solemnly, processing this information. What happens to me now? Sarah Taylor placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. You'll stay with us as long as needed, sweetheart. You have a home with us. As they prepared to leave through a private exit, Theo and his parents approached. Manuel's face showed the strain of recent days, but he smiled warmly at Emma. You did it, pequeña valiente, he said, brave little one. Emma surprised everyone by stepping forward to hug him, then Rosa, and finally Theo. Thank you for finding me, she whispered. Outside, rain had begun to fall, washing away the summer heat. As they walked to the waiting cars, Emma tilted her face upward, letting the droplets fall on her skin. For the first time in months, she breathed freely, the weight of secrets and fear beginning to lift from her small shoulders. Justice had not been fully served. That would come with the trial. But the path forward was clear. Martin Blackwood would face consequences for his actions, and Emma would begin the long journey of healing. 6 months later, winter gave way to spring in Millfield. Cherry blossoms dotted the courthouse lawn where reporters had once camped out for glimpses of Martin Blackwood. The media circus had long since moved on to newer scandals, leaving the town to heal from its divisions. The trial had been shorter than expected. Faced with overwhelming evidence, the freezer footage, Emma's testimony, Catherine's hidden phone, forensic findings that contradicted the original accident ruling, Martin Blackwood had accepted a plea deal. 25 years for second degrees murder, with additional time for child endangerment and abuse. No possibility of parole for at least 18 years. He'll be an old man when he gets out, Officer Ramirez told Emma when the sentencing was announced, and you'll be all grown up with a life he can't touch. Emma had nodded, her expression thoughtful rather than fearful. The nightmares still came sometimes, but less frequently. Dr. Patel called it progress. On this particular Saturday morning, Emma sat on the porch swing at the Taylor farm, a book open on her lap, Sonny dozing at her feet. The sound of tires on gravel announced visitors, the Vasquez family arriving for their weekly visit. These gatherings had become a cherished ritual. Manuel would help James with farm projects. Rosa and Sarah would cook together, swapping recipes and stories. Theo and Emma would explore the property, building forts in the woods or visiting the small pond where turtles sunned themselves on logs. Today, Theo bounded from the car with special energy, waving a letter. "Emma, I got in." She marked her place in the book and ran to meet him. "The Science Academy? You got accepted?" "Full scholarship," Theo confirmed, grinning. "Dad says I can go as long as I keep helping on weekends." Manuel approached more slowly, his gait still slightly stiff from the accident at his new job. After Westlake Industries had laid him off, downsizing they'd called it, though everyone knew the real reason, he'd found work at a local manufacturing plant. The hours were longer, but the environment healthier, without Martin Blackwood's toxic presence. "We're very proud," Manuel said, ruffling his son's hair. "My boy, the future scientist." "Engineer," Theo corrected with teenage certainty. "I'm going to design safer buildings, maybe hospitals." Emma smiled, recognizing the seed of this ambition, his desire to protect others, born in that cold kitchen when he'd found her locked away. Inside, the house buzzed with activity. Sarah was finalizing paperwork for Emma's official adoption. After months as her foster parents, the Taylors were making it permanent, with Emma's full and enthusiastic consent. "Once the judge signs these," Sarah explained, showing Emma where she would add her signature, "you'll legally be Emma Taylor." "Not Blackwood anymore," Emma confirmed, though they'd discussed this many times. "Not unless you want to keep it." Emma shook her head decisively. "I want a new name, a fresh start." James appeared in the doorway, flour dusting his shirt front. "Who wants butterfly pancakes? Special occasion edition!" The kitchen filled with chatter and laughter as everyone gathered around the big farm table. These were the moments that had slowly rebuilt Emma's trust in the world. Ordinary kindnesses, daily rituals of belonging, the steady presence of adults who meant what they said. After breakfast, while the adults lingered over coffee, Theo and Emma took Sonny for a walk to their favorite spot, a hilltop overlooking the valley where wildflowers had begun to bloom in purple and yellow patches. "Do you ever think about him?" Theo asked as they sat watching clouds drift across the blue spring sky. Emma didn't need clarification. "Sometimes. Dr. Patel says that's normal. He was still my dad." "Do you miss him?" She considered this carefully. "I miss the dad I thought I had when Mom was alive, not the real one." She plucked a daisy, twirling it between her fingers. "Mostly I miss my mom. At least she got justice," Theo offered. because of you." Emma nodded. "Aunt Melissa says I'm just like her, stubborn in the right ways." Melissa Reynolds had become a regular visitor too, building the relationship with her niece that Martin had once forbidden. She'd even been talking with the Taylors about moving to Millfield permanently. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" Theo asked, changing the subject. Tomorrow was Emma's first dance recital since everything happened. She'd started ballet classes, again 3 months ago, discovering joy in movement that had once been just another of her father's expectations. "A little," she admitted, "but Sarah and James will be there, and Aunt Melissa, and you guys." She grinned suddenly. "And Sonny has a special collar to wear," Theo laughed. "A therapy dog at a dance recital, only you, Emma Taylor." She liked the sound of her new name to be Emma Taylor. Not the perfect, controlled Blackwood princess, but a regular girl with skinned knees from climbing trees in a bedroom decorated with her own artwork rather than designer furnishings. As they headed back toward the farmhouse, Emma spotted something that made her stop. A butterfly, the first of the season, orange and black wings fluttering as it landed briefly on Sonny's golden head. "Look," she whispered to Theo, remembering her mother's game. "Find 3 beautiful things, no matter where you are or how you feel. 1. The butterfly, a visitor bringing color and movement. 2. Sonny, patient and steady, the constant companion who kept nightmares at bay. 3. This moment itself, standing on solid ground with a friend who had once reached into darkness. To savor." The butterfly took flight again, spiraling upward on the spring breeze. Emma watched it go, her face tilted to the sun. "Ready?" Theo asked. Emma took a deep breath of fresh air. "Ready." Together they walked down the hill toward home, where people who loved them were waiting, where the future stretched before them. Like an open road, unmarked, unwritten, full of possibility.